Okay, so our guest today is someone who's in the world of exotic, luxury, unique cars.
Yeah.
Someone who has been in the industry for many years, dealing with la crème de la crème of automobiles. Daniel Yeomans, it's fantastic to have you here with us. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you.
Actually, before digging and discussing things about the automotive industry, and I would like to know more about you and let people know. I'm personally a big fan of you. I've seen a lot of your car review videos. They're very nice. And I personally believe you're the next Matt Watson.
He's done well for himself. He's done very well, especially for the Carwow brand. He's done very good.
Definitely. So. And can you tell us more about yourself, how you ended up in Qatar and what led you to take this career in the automotive industry?
Yeah, I mean, just beginning with Qatar, first and foremost. I've been here 6 months now, so fairly fresh, as they say. But the World Cup for me put Qatar on the map. It really did. Like British, typically, we're aware of Dubai. We're aware of the slightly more common places, whereas Qatar was almost under the radar. It was like a hidden gem. Mm-hmm. And then the World Cup came around, and then we started looking a little bit more. I was like, they have a supercar scene. Okay. And then for me and I'm very self-development driven. Everything I've ever done, I've always really tried to strive for, okay, what's the next step? What's the next thing I can work on? What's the next thing in Daniel's chapter that's going to help me grow? Mm-hmm. And I've almost started at the bottom of cars, Ford Fiestas, VWs, and, £2,000 cars. And now I'm brokering 2 million Real Cullinans on a daily basis like it's nothing. Mm-hmm. So I've worked the long way. But what brought me to Qatar was the supercar scene. Like I had no idea that there would be such a concentrated amount of supercars, which I'll probably go into later on. But Qatar itself, how can I put it? It's the hidden gem for me in GCC, especially for British. Everybody goes to Dubai. I feel like Dubai, no disrespect, it's like London. It's almost lost its heritage, its culture. Right here, it still has it. It's still full, and I love that. And that's one of the reasons that it drew me in, basically. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the role and how I ended up working here was the same thing. It was natural progression for me. I ended up working in one of the busiest car dealerships in the UK called Saxton 4x4. Massive establishment, good 600 cars a month, all premium, all high end. And I wanted to pull it back. I wanted a more hands-on approach with supercars. World Cup ended, opportunity came up in Qatar. It was like the universe aligned, and here I am.
Yeah, and now you're working with Knightsbridge Automotive, which is a luxurious dealership,
exactly
supercars.
So Knightsbridge, they are purely high-end luxury super hypercars. Mm-hmm. Very niche, everything from consignments to sourcing to anything you need in terms of high-end luxury cars. Servicing, recovering, anything, we can do it for you. Mm-hmm. So it's not just dealership, we can collect your car, we can service it, we can look after it, PPF, we can do everything. So it's like a one-stop shop, and I love that because you get to build relationships and see the cars through, basically.
Actually, I visited Knightsbridge showroom, and it's like you're entering in, I don't know, a museum of cars, and you see unique pieces.
And that's another thing about cars, the uniqueness of cars. Because I feel like as a culture, you guys love customizing cars, whereas the UK, you don't really see much of it. So it's good to see that element too. You see some really unique pieces, for sure.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned that you came and to Qatar, and the World Cup was, let's say, an eye-opener for you.
Absolutely.
How do you feel now that the Formula One is happening here and, the Geneva International Motor Show? I think
this was just the creme de la creme. So I am a motorsport fan. Massive petrol head. Grew up in the rallying world. Grew up around cars, go-karting, racing, rallying, whatever it may be. And I came after the World Cup. So you can say I came at the wrong time. I think I came at the right time. I came based on what the World Cup was almost designed to do. Was to put Qatar on the map, and it did, So I'm here, gone through what was quite possibly the hottest summer I've experienced. Guy from West Wales, 45-degree heat and 80% humidity, wasn't fun. But the F1, this time, November last year when the World Cup was on, I was in Abu Dhabi watching the F1.
Really?
So the fact is, this year, I'm going to be watching it in almost like my hometown. I'm going to be watching it in Qatar. And that's just unbelievable. On the back end of that, I've missed the Geneva Motor Show for the best part of 4 years. It's in Qatar.
So things are coming to you
it's
now.
coming to me. And then on top of that, again, I'm a massive motorcycle fan. I love racing bikes. On top of that, the MotoGP is coming. So November, MotoGP is here. So this is...
Yeah, I've seen your profile. You have a lot of followers I've seen who are interested in automotive. I've seen you with the bikes and photos. And interesting. I wanted to know, when did this start? The love and passion for automotive.
For me, it was... If I move that in, there we go. I've always been into cars. I feel really fortunate in life. And the reason being, I haven't always career-wise been in the automotive industry. I started off as a plumber working for my dad in West Wales. So it was very humble beginnings, should we say. But for me, I can't remember a time where I didn't like cars. Or I didn't like, for example, on a motorbike, even to this day, just you turn the throttle and you go. It's like my brain doesn't still compute. You don't need to use legs. You can just twist the throttle and you go. It's such a feeling. It's such a rush. And cars, it's the same thing. It's that freedom. Like when you get your first car and you're like, you've passed your driving test. And it's like, I can go anywhere. I don't need my mum. I don't need my dad. I can go, and that's just stuck with me forever. Yeah. So in terms of where has it come from, my dad was a passionate petrol head. My grandparents adored cars. My grandparents actually had a VW camper van that was all kitted out. So my grandfather used to work for Sunseeker Yachts, and he used to do all the interiors for the yachts. He used to bring all the leather back home, and he used to kit his camper van out. So he had the most beautiful interior in his camper van. We used to go to shows together, and just from my earliest memories, I can remember just riding in the front on a booster seat, going to these shows, driving 30 mile an hour down the road because it was a little air-cooled Porsche engine. Couldn't go any quicker.
So I can say this is in the family. It's flowing in the blood.
Literally, and it's fallen through into my sister as well. So I have a sister. She's a good 5 years younger than me. She is now powertrain manager at McLaren. She heads up a division, in one of the most respected supercar companies in the world. So it's not just me. It's my auntie. It's my sister. My mum doesn't really care, but yeah, she's the one that humbles us.
Interesting. It's incredible to see how passion shapes someone's lives and personality, and the direction you take in life. So you clearly mentioned that. Yeah.
I think it's especially in this day and age, especially with social media, everyone almost feels like they have to have a purpose straight away in life. For me, it wasn't. I got into selling cars a little bit later. I was in mid-20s, but the passion was always there. And then when I decided to go, okay, cool, I found my industry. I'm going to be in cars for the rest of time, whether it's selling supercars, whatever. I don't know what God will allow, but I'm very fortunate. I found an industry I love, I adore, and I'm going to keep working at it. And hence why I'm here today.
So. My next question is related to the British automotive industry. It's very rich, and we know the iconic brands. The Aston Martin, McLaren, Mini, Land Rover, Jaguar, and many others. We all know these brands, regardless that these they started, as in the UK, and maybe later on, they changed ownership as this happens. It's very common in the automotive industry.
Massively common, for sure.
I wanted to see and understand, do these brands still preserve, the British heritage?
So to answer this fully, I'd have to probably tap into Land Rover. And it's not because I've spent the best part of 10 years selling them. They are deep-rooted in rich, royal British history, right? And I think it's probably one of the brands that hasn't diluted from that too much. Now, for example, quote me if I'm wrong in the comment section, I may be wrong in this, but it was from 1967, first inception, British Leyland, they were the first owners. Company stormed off, they sold it off. I understand it may have been to BMW at the time, there may be someone else in between, but the BMW era from 2001 to 2008 was probably one of the worst in terms of reliability. Range Rovers were not known for reliability in that age, but BMW were. They kept their roots, they kept their design concepts, and then if we just fast forward to the Tata era, which is the one that we more commonly know, I mean, you just quickly have to look at what cars are available in the Range Rover range now. Look, what's come out recently, the new Defender. The new Defender, massively popular in the UK, probably even more so here in Qatar. You know, it's kept its origin. It still looks Defender. It has that British touch to it. There's the 75th Heritage Edition that just came out.
Despite that, the Land Rover and Jaguar have been purchased by Tata Group, which is like an Indian company.
Massive
As you were
Indian.
mentioning, they still preserve, the British identity.
For sure.
And I think a lot of manufacturing facilities are still in the UK and operations still in the UK. So
absolutely,
they want to keep it this way.
Look, if it's not broken, don't change it, right? If it's not broken, you don't need to fix it. They've brought out that new Range Rover, the new Sport, the new Defender. The entire range has been redesigned, and it still looks traditionally Range Rover. You can look at the new 2023 and the 2008 Range Rovers, and you can argue they look very similar. So to answer your question, I think they have kept the heritage, and even if we go into McLaren, Aston Martin, yada yada, they have, even though they're globally scaled companies, they still have that little bit of British touch, which is quite cool.
One of the brands that really impressed me, how they want to still preserve it, and even if you visit their showrooms, is MG, Morris Garage. If you go to their showroom, you still see the British flags there. And
absolutely.
Despite that,
even here.
Here too.
Yeah.
Despite that, it has been purchased by SAIC Motors, which is a Chinese company.
Correct.
Still, this link with the British culture is still present.
So me personally, I've not had many dealings with MGs, but my grandfather will kill me for saying this. But he adored them, and he had MGBs, all the different variations throughout the years. And rightly or wrongly, I think about 12 of them were ending up on the back of his garden at one stage, just not doing much. But it's good, like companies like that they don't sell out. I like that. They keep true to who they are.
True. I mean, this is what we've discussed. We've discussed the example of, Tata Motors. We've discussed SAIC Motors. And also there are many other examples like British automakers, British brands that has been sold to Germans, like BMW and others. We mentioned Chinese and everywhere in the world.
For sure.
This is very interesting. Like how powerful is the British, automaking and influence they had globally. And I wanted to know also, how do you see this influence in the Qatari market? Like, since we're now living in Qatar, how do you see that impacting this?
It's a really good question, right? And I always, just to try and keep things on topic, just take London, for example. How many Qataris, I think the majority of London is owned by Qatar, right? All the main iconic sites anyway. And I now understand more from being here that it's a popular stop-off for Qataris who would like to go to destinations, study, King's College. This what you guys do with your education system is quite frankly unbelievable. If people don't know, I may be wrong, and please correct me if I am wrong, the Qatar government actually will support you in any decision you make to go to study anywhere you like. And as of quite recent, a lot of students do go to London, so you do find you have a lot of Qataris in London. So I think they almost bring the British back with them. It's because when they come back, they want to drive a Range Rover, or they want to be around the Defenders, or they almost want to keep that separation. There's the British culture, and then there's the Qatar, and they almost merge, but they don't dilute. They complement one each other.
True.
So that's how I see it anyway.
So this takes me to another question that I wanted to ask you about the differences that you see between the Qatari market and the UK market when it comes to automotive. I think there are many similarities that you just mentioned. How people get influenced when they go study, travel, and bring it back home.
For sure.
But what do you see like?
What you have to understand is the British market in comparison in terms of population. Now again, give or take a few 100,000. Qatar's 2.7 million. I may be wrong there, roughly.
Yeah, expats.
Yeah, majority of which are expats. 300k of Qataris. give or take. Now, the British market is 67 million. So this 20 odd times larger, right? And then I always look at, if you want to compare car markets, as in the automotive market versus, Qatar market versus British market, it's completely different. Firstly, by scale. Secondly, by how you fund cars. So the British, for example, finance is huge. Majority of people buy cars for, say, 18 months, and they change on what's called a PCP. It's almost where you leverage the guaranteed future value of the car versus the car's value, and you loan a very small amount. Perks of doing this, you can keep your money in the bank, you can invest it, you're not tying it into a car. Here in Qatar, I've been here for 6 months, and I've not sold finance once. Everything's bought outright, everything's cash done. Where there's bank loans maybe involved, I don't know, but it seems to be a lot more of a cash fluid market. Maybe it's because the market I'm in, I don't know. But they're the two big key differences. Like, of course, you have your company with the advertising of cars. I haven't seen how many cars are currently live, but I'll use one of your competitors, for example. They currently have 8,000 cars live. Auto Trader in the UK, they have the best part of 440,000 cars.
That's
so
a big
just
difference.
look at scale. The scale is it's just a different amount of volume. It's just a different amount of,
Yeah,
it's just such a larger market, and the market is predominantly fueled by finance in the UK, where Qatar is completely different again.
But I mean, do people there in the UK buy the cars based on like how convenient the car is or how affordable? They look at this.
Yeah.
And
So there's a lot more of a middle market, should we say, as opposed to a high-end market. So we definitely see cars are just purchased for convenience, daily use. Mum's taking the kids shopping, soccer, football, whatever it may be. Whereas
here it's more of show off.
Exactly. I wouldn't dare I use the word show off. I don't want to offend anyone. But there's definitely more of a status here. Cars carry a lot more status, for sure, 100%. Especially with differences between like a HSE, Land Rover, and an autobiography. Everybody wants autobiography. Whereas back in the UK, you can sell an SE, they don't know the difference. They don't care. But here, it's definitely more of a reputation thing. Absolutely. Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, I want to know, since you are, in the world of automotive, and let's speak about the performance cars, the high supercars, because this is your specialty.
This is what we should be talking about.
Which car has impressed you the most? And you say, this car, I love the design, I love the performance.
Are we talking about one car in the modern day era that has just changed the game?
Yes.
Because ultimately, right, there is only one car and one car only.
And I'm sure it's not electric.
It's most definitely not electric. And I have to be brutally transparent. I'm the guy that spends the majority of his time on this website building this particular car. Just
customization.
Literally. So for me, without a shadow of a doubt, it's the new GT3 RS. What Porsche have done and what they have created and how they evolved the standard GT3 RS absolutely blows my mind in terms of technology, the power they get from that unit, the handling capabilities. I had a very, very short drive, and I'm talking like 10 kilometers, if that, in a low delivery mileage example. Tires were nice and warm, managed to take it around the block, and just how pointy it was, how composed it was.
So the handling and the feeling.
My hairs are coming up now thinking about it, honestly. Without a shadow of a doubt, that car was my game changer. That, for me, there are hypercars, there's faster cars out there, there's cars that are a lot more money. But for what they've built pound for pound, that GT3 RS is just something else. Honestly, wow.
Nice. This is a good promotion for Porsche.
Yeah. Porsche, and if you're listening to this.
I mean, what about the Porsche Taycan? It's not bad as well.
The Porsche Taycan GTS, it's and again, Porsche, if you've done this on purpose, I'm very grateful. You can launch control it very easily. It doesn't take much to put it into a full launch, and how fast that thing is 0 to 60 is electric cars, look, they have their purpose, and we will touch on them later, I'm sure, but the rate they go from 0 to 60 is it's mind organ rearranging.
You know what the problem is people are trying to compare like petrol cars with electric. They're totally different. The way they function is different, so you cannot compare.
And they have different purposes. You have to remember that. They're not like, I have no problems with a daily, mundane electric car for just day-to-day use. Does it give me any sense of fulfillment or enjoyment in driving? Absolutely not.
It doesn't.
Nothing. None. It's very clinical. It's very almost like repetitive as well. There's nothing about it, you know.
I like the term clinical. It's an accurate way to describe it, because you feel it's so silent.
So silent. It does what it's supposed to do, and that is it. It's very German. But for me, I don't drive cars because that's, you know, I understand the purpose, but it just doesn't do it for me. I can't do it.
This is why some manufacturers are trying to, you know, make fake exhaust sounds, which I think it's zero utility. It's like trying to make it look good, but it doesn't.
My blood pressure is already high enough. Doing this, it puts me on my comfort zone, should we say. But I'll be 130/80 if I start talking about fake noises, the sounds. Let's just not even entertain that conversation. Why, if you want to emulate those sort of sounds, just buy a petrol car. Just buy an engine car.
I think they don't want to miss out on people like you who are like still very attached to
for me,
petrol cars.
Like what I would find more appealing is, did you ever watch the film Tron? So you know the sounds, the high, you know, that sort of different sound that the electric bikes and the cars used to make. Amplify that, give it a different sound, something that's completely rather than trying to make it sound like a motor, make it sound like an electric car, but beefed out, you know? Don't try and emulate something it's not. Be unique, have your own spin on it, you know? Maybe false gear changes, I don't know, but you know, something that's going to add a bit more enjoyment than just,
but I think what you just mentioned, the purpose of electric cars are different. I mean, at the end, it's for mobility, is to move from point A to B. And now, like having an electric car, having autopilot, driving is not like before.
No.
It's totally different experience.
Especially in the US. So the US is obviously a lot more catered towards Tesla. And it's autonomous driving, which is unbelievable. I mean, you see the videos of guys reading newspapers while they go into work.
I've seen some people sleeping.
While
the car was driving, they were sleeping.
Yeah. And look, there's I've heard, especially from a good YouTuber friend of mine, a couple of horror stories, you know, where he's had autopilot on and he's come up towards a bridge and it's panicked and thought it was a car and actually changed lanes and slammed the brakes on, which almost caused an accident.
Oh my God.
So it's how much trust you want to put into a machine for the benefit of getting to work without a little bit more input. I don't know, you know.
I think it's just the start. It's normal to see such incidents.
Teething problems. Teething problems.
I mean, this technology, I mean, the autonomous driving is also implemented in other cars. Like,
for sure,
you have the Genesis GV80. And all. They have it as well.
Even the common brands like Mercedes, you can buy the driver assistance package, which will lane steer and radar guide you on speed, but you have to keep one hand on the steering wheel. I'm not condoning this in any way, but if you had a tennis ball and you wedge it in the steering wheel, it thinks your hands are on the steering wheel, so you can actually just kick back.
I mean, there are some pros and cons. Let's be honest. I mean, if you have 1 hour driving every day in the morning, you have this 1 hour for you. You can do other stuff, you know.
Exactly.
You can like check your phone, read whatever.
If you value your time, it depends what you look at, right? So there's two arguments to this conversation, I would say. So there's someone who's not really interested in driving, but really values their time. That 1 hour, they can finish their podcast, book, meeting, voice notes, etc. Me, for example, if I had an hour, I want to drive to work because it's my time. I like to be involved. I like to be in control of that car and drive that journey. That's my time away from everything, where I can't physically text, I can't send emails, I can't do this. It's a physical stop to not do anything else, and that's my time. Music on, driving, that's my bliss. But there's the other argument, which I get. You know, it's the how much do you value your time, and where do you want to allocate your time? So
honestly speaking, if you know, the cars are driving by themselves and I'm doing nothing, I would rather go in a train or, you know, honestly speaking.
For sure.
Why should I own this?
Ubers, by the way, can I just say, if you guys ever come to Qatar, the cheapest Uber prices known to man, by far. Like,
compared to the UK.
Unbelievable, yeah.
But you guys have Uber in the UK.
Of course, yeah.
Because in some countries they I remember when I used to live in Spain and Barcelona, they were
Not so much. Yeah.
They weren't present.
Yeah. So like in
But now it's
comparison to
everywhere.
like Dubai, because I frequently visit one of my best friends, it's chalk and cheese, unbelievable. Yeah, it's like I can get to work on 9 reals, which equivalent is like £2. It's almost questions like, do I get a car? You know.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Cool. What we got next?
Next. Yeah, it's going back to, I mean, still the EV. No. Actually, what I wanted to ask you, because you're selling cars and, you're representing Knightsbridge.
Yeah.
What would you advise someone that is willing to buy an expensive car, a hypercar? What should they consider before buying and purchasing one?
Good question, and it's quite a common question. So for me, it boils down to two avenues first and foremost. So my question would be for you. It would always be: are you looking for short term or are you looking for long term? Because that's going to dictate ultimately what the answer will be. So let's take the shorthand. You're looking for a car that's 6 to 8 to 12 months, and you want to get out of it. I will be tailoring your search to something that's maybe not necessarily your first choice, but what's the market's ideal choice. So what's the most saleable version of the car that I like? So for example, I don't know, take a 458 Italia, or whatever it may be. Your ultimate spec would be some sort of British racing green over tan seats. It's not the first choice for people. I would probably steer you away from it. If it was Rossa Corsa red on crema leather, that's where I'll be guiding you. So it'll all dictate on, are you looking long-term or are you looking short-term? Because if it's long-term, you can be a little bit cheeky. You can go for really what you really, really want because you're going to hold on to it. You're going to cherish it. You're going to love and live with it for the next 5-6 years maybe. So it's irrelevant of so much the sale price or Daniel, the saleability.
What you're trying to say here is that you should consider the value of the car once you purchase it, if you're willing to, sell it in the future.
What I always advise is, and what I always try to say is, it's not the price you pay today. It's the price when you sell the car. That's your cost of ownership. So your cost of ownership isn't the $1 million you pay today. It's the $750 you sell it for, and that's $250K. Now that can vary massively depending on spec. So it depends on, again, is it short-term or long-term? Because that will ultimately dictate where I guide you. If you're going short-term, okay, what I want to do is I want to put my capital into a car. I want to enjoy it. I want to put a little bit of miles on it, not too much, and then I want to get back out. What brands would you recommend? For example, here in Qatar, I'll be pushing you into a 911 Turbo S, 911 Turbo, things of that sort of nature, which are easy to resell. There's not many of them. And when you get a good one, you can sell it the same day. The resale, when I get one in stock, I can hand on heart, if I have a 911 Turbo S, 20 to 2023, low mileage, I'll sell it within a few hours. There's a bank of people waiting for it. Whereas you've gone and bought a Carrera S with no aero pack, manual. You've enjoyed it. Yes, you've bought it cheaply. 12 months down the line, you're gonna struggle. And when you do sell it, you're not going to make as much money.
Actually, when I checked the cars from Knightsbridge, because we list you as well on One Autocar, which is an automotive listing platform. I look at some of the cars; they have very low mileage, and I wonder, what is this case? Is it someone that has bought the car, didn't like it, sold it? Can you tell me the story since you're dealing with?
Yeah. So there's. As I readjust, apologies.
Daniel, but in some cases, you look like it's less than 5,000 kilometers or 10,000.
Even less, nothing. Sometimes 2,000 kilometers. Sometimes it's even less. Right now, the world of high-end automobiles, especially supercars, you can't just walk in and say, I want to buy this car. You can't just, say for example, take Ferrari. You can't just walk in and say, I want to buy an Enzo. Back in the day, you had to be selected to buy them. Now, especially here in Qatar, a lot of the cars, especially the ones that we get, they were almost stepping stones. Like, again, with a 911 GT3 RS, I had a client who bought a Cayenne Turbo GT just to get his name on the list, just to get into that car. His wife drove it for 300 kilometers, and he sold it.
Oh, my God.
This is you're using these cars as almost leveraging chips to get yourself on the board for something else.
Yeah, and you were mentioning this case where they
Yeah.
were in the waiting list. Just
So again, I always relate to things to like watches. So because if you're buying luxury cars, you tend to get watches. You tend to understand tend to go hand in hand. You don't just walk into your Rolex dealership and say, I want to buy a Daytona. It doesn't work. You have to buy the Datejust, then the Sky Dweller, yada, yada, yada. It's the same thing with cars. And what I found out here more than ever is it is quite evident that cars are used as stepping stones. You know, they are used to get up in the list, get in the good books, so they can get ultimately the golden pieces, you know, the ones that you really want. I also tend to find, especially the low mileage cars, like if you, again, taking Range Rovers, don't mean to harp on about them, but especially here in Qatar, there's such a long wait list for Range Rovers, like a good 18 months. So people who are buying them, going straight onto the market and leveraging and making the money off the back end of them, you know, because people will pay for the convenience. They'll pay to jump the queue.
got it. Yeah.
That explains why a lot of our cars are 0 kilometer, you know.
So sometimes when there is shortage or there is high demand, let's say, on a specific model, and you have it, and then you can sell it and you can make money out of it.
It's supply and demand.
So
And it trickles all the way down to like Lexus range. So for example, when the 2023 Lexus came out here in Qatar, they were being instantly resold for a premium. And the premium was 30, 40K straight out the hole. But people were paying it because they were happy to just jump the queue, which for me is mind-blowing, but it's that status. Going back to what you said earlier on about status, it is because you're the first one in the country to have that car, you know? And if you know deep within you that, okay, look, I'm going to pay a premium for this car. However, if I sell it in 6 months, I'm not going to lose as much money. I'm going to lose a little, but not too much. You can almost justify it in your head. I think I see a lot of that, for sure.
I mean, when you are in this world where people want to feel unique and have like something, you know, that is
nobody
not,
else has.
Yeah. But once something happens and becomes popular, everyone is getting it. A good example is the Defender, since we're speaking about the Defender.
Yeah.
You feel there is a trend, you know, if you look into
100%.
the streets, like Defenders are everywhere.
For sure. And you see it in the price. I mean, even today, I mean, the Defender's not a new car. You can buy 2020s here. You know, you had quite one of the earliest models, but the 2023s, low mileage, they fly out. They still do to this day. And I think, again, it comes down to that supply and demand. Or maybe it's the world in general. We live in a world where we're very TikTok-based, 15-second flicks, short dopamine releases. It's very seldom people want to wait for things, and they want everything now. I think clients understand that, and when they've got their delivery, they've ordered 2, they've kept one for themselves, they're selling 1, they're filling the gap in the market, they're getting a little premium on the top of it, and everybody's a winner. You know? They haven't got to wait, they have a little bit of money, and yeah.
Can you tell us a story about someone who like came and purchased a car from you, and you just remember the story and that astonished you, something that you have in mind?
It's just, yeah, do you know what? I always relate this because I've got one actually, and I'd like to share it. Now it's from my first early days when I worked for Mercedes-Benz. This was back in 2013, 24, good 10 years ago.
So back in the UK?
Back in the UK, back in West Wales. It was my first main dealer. And my mum said something like, you know, never judge a book by its cover. And I never have. I grew up in West Wales. Most of the wealthiest people of the wealth I knew of were farmers. They'd always wear wellies, flat caps, and look like they haven't had a bath in a week. You know? So I've never been that sort of judgmental kind. Now, I moved up towards Cardiff, which was sort of like the main city for Wales. It's a good hour and a half away out, but it was a lot more sharper dressed people. It was my first taste of not living in sort of country land, West Wales. And I remember a particular client, I won't say her name because I remember really well. She came in, she was wearing Dr. Martin boots, the craziest multicolored dress you can ever imagine. And I remember sitting there and I was just throwing my lunch down because it was quite a busy day. She walked in and we were in like the sales den. She walked in and a lot of the people were just like smirking and giggling, like, oh, look at this. She's walking into Mercedes looking like this. I looked around and I just felt like, as a kid, nobody has a stress-free, bully-free childhood, I think. Everybody has their moments.
Yeah.
It just took me back to like days where I probably didn't fit in as well as everyone. And I got my back up and I was like, no, boom, I didn't even finish my lunch. I put my lunch down, water in, and I went straight out to meet her. I had the best conversation I've had with anyone. I sat with her for the best part of 3 hours, and we discussed everything from life, houses. Turns out she owned half of Cardiff. The majority. She bought the first C63 AMG Ocean Edition cab. If you Google it, I bet you've never seen it. It's this brilliant white C63 with a liquid blue sort of cabrio roof. Full option C63S. It was the only one in the country, or it was the first one in the country. She bought that plus 2 other cars for her family.
Oh my God.
And that one's in.
I imagine you got your commission for that.
I got my commission, and at the time where I wasn't really selling many cars because I wasn't any good, but that moment just solidified. Never judge a book by its cover. And yeah, that was one of my coolest ones.
Very
Literally,
nice story.
Someone who wrote somebody off entirely, and then you got money bags everywhere and houses. That was literally her, but nobody knew. She came in like a rental car. Bought one of the most expensive cars you could ever put your hands on. A car that was, again, arguably sail-proof because it's bright white with a blue roof. If you can put a picture up, that'd be amazing. But yeah, that for me will always. I've got hundreds of toys, but that one sticks in my mind for sure.
Nice story, inspiring. I'm gonna ask you quick questions, so you will have to reply now. Electric or hybrid?
I mean, that's going to have to be a hybrid. If it can be a 918 Spider, the Laugh, or the P1, I'd be very happy.
I'm a big fan of Porsche.
Yeah.
Mercedes S-Class or BMW the 7 Series?
Oh, my Mercedes heritage is going to come through. Yeah, I'm going to have to say S-Class. I have to.
G-Class or Defender?
Oh, do you know what? This is such a tough one. G-Class or Defender? G-Class.
Nissan Patrol or Toyota Land Cruiser?
Oh, Land Cruiser. Easy. I'm with my Qataris.
Germans or Japanese?
For
We're
cars.
speaking about cars.
For cars. I mean, it's people. I like them both. Cars. I'm a German guy. I'm a Stuttgart. Take me to the Nordschleife. Take me to the Nürburgring. That's me through and through. Yeah. Although, if you were talking about Impreza 22Bs or maybe some R34 GTRs or something of that nature, slightly different conversation. I'm going German.
Okay, das ist gut.
Yeah, it's very good.
Lamborghini Revuelta without AC in Qatar or Suzuki Swift with AC?
Oh, I'll sweat till I die. Put me in the Lambo.
Have you seen the hot days of Qatar, you said?
I'm British from West Wales. You know, my hot summers. So Wales, if you didn't know, it rains about 80% of the time. I like to think I was molded by the rain. You know? Have you seen the film The Dark Knight?
Yeah, I think so.
You know, Bane, he's in there. Oh, you've merely adopted the darkness. It's for me, it's with rain. I lived in the rain. I was molded by it. I grew up in it. So yeah, I'll take the heat.
Yeah, but the difference it would be sweat, not rain. So
55
degrees in a
I'll
nice
take
car.
55 degrees and rather sweat in a Lambo. I'm sorry, yeah.
I think you're very confident with the answer. Okay.
Yeah, for 100, you're not swaying me on that one.
Okay, you like to drive alone or with with the company, someone with you in the car?
I don't mind. I'll never drive quick with company because it's my responsibility of their safety. I've always had that in my mind.
Someone talkative, someone that...
Don't know where this conversation is going. If I have a partner with me, she's DJ and I'll drive, you know.
Okay.
I feel like if I'm going for like your partner, male or female, where their responsibility is to make sure you have snacks and the music is good, you know, and then the driver's responsibility is car navigation and yeah.
And everyone is quiet.
I mean, we can have conversations for sure.
Okay.
I mean, what a boring drive that would be, you know.
Next question. Steering wheel, left or right?
I got a funny story, actually. The guys who follow me on Instagram would have seen for the best part of 6 weeks, I jump into the wrong side every single time. Walk up to a car, right-hand side, sat on the door, and I went, oh.
I really don't understand. This should be universal. I've been to Scotland. I rented a car.
Yeah.
What happened to you here? It happened to me in Scotland.
Honestly.
And this is crazy. This is crazy because everything is
it's backwards. You go, remember, I'm hardwired for right-hand drive cars. Everything, you know, left-hand changing if it's manual or everything's there. So then you jump into a left-hand drive. I almost go to like look this way to my left, and my hand goes through the window.
Sometimes it's dangerous because, you know, like pedestrians and you don't know where they are, where they're coming from.
So if you work in car dealerships, you have to learn very quickly to maneuver cars, parallel park, etc., in very, very tight spaces. Like, you know the width and you know your bearings. So I know where the bonnet is. And I'm pointing across now because obviously the steering wheel's changed. But you know the depth of everything. But when you change the other side, your depth perceptions all change. because I'm so used to sitting on the right and knowing my left where it is to get through a tight gap. I'm in an Aventador and I'm going through tiny little doors, you know.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm on the other side of the steering wheel. I'm thinking, no, I need to. Yeah, my perception is that way. So that took a while.
How many times did you go to the passenger seat
Don't
to open the door?
But literally for the first 6 weeks, I sold me a hands on table. Promise you, probably over a dozen times.
You should put
And I sat in the car.
open here, just a mark.
Yeah, but now I can. So left-hand drive or right-hand drive?
You didn't answer. Yeah,
I have to answer the question. I don't know. I think I'm going to say left.
Left in a country where everyone is right, or left in a country that everyone is left?
No, I'm going to go left-hand drive, and the reason being, it ties in with Europe. The majority of France, Sweden, Italy, all the good driving roads, the major driving roads, are left-hand drive cars.
Yeah.
So if I'm ever going to go through like the Stelvio Pass or somewhere really cool, it's going to be left-hand drives.
Okay. Bugatti, Mistral, and depressed, or Renault, Twingo, and happy?
I'm going to go Bugatti and depressed.
Depressed, very depressed, you know,
Okay.
like seeing the psychologist and
Okay.
crying
So-
all the time.
Without going too deep and going completely off topic, I have a theory on depression, and I think it's when you perceive your position in life where it shouldn't be, for example. So you almost perceive, I'm 34, I should be here by now, and you feel like you're behind, and you put the pressure on yourself. And I feel like it's all expectations and ego-driven that puts it on you. And I'm not saying depression isn't a thing. It most certainly is for a lot of people, right? Mm-hmm. But I've never come out of the gym unhappy.
Yeah, that's true.
When I take the pressure off myself and just go with the flow a little bit more and cut back, because I'm a guy I like to be a high achiever. I always keep pushing. What's next? So I feel like I have some level of, knowledge in this area from my self-perception, right? And I've always found
to get the Bugatti or
get the Bugatti,
to get the Bugatti,
go to the gym, do 100 squats, get the endorphins flying through you, and then jump into the Bugatti. I mean, come on.
Interesting.
So yeah, I'm going to go with the Bugatti because the Twingo will make me sad and unhappy.
Well, Daniel, thank you so much for coming. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks.